folks. Welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 2919 East Broadway. This is the Jake Feinberg Show on Power Talk 1210. We are full on extraterrestrial radio now. Stream all of our live local shows by going to powertalk1210.com. And we thank you for being part of the program today. And last year, in 2015, I had an opportunity to interview an innovator, a producer, arranger, and a tremendous musician in his own right, Herb Alpert, who wound up meeting my guest, who is an equally talented performer, somebody who's always been on the cutting edge of world music and has sustained herself through leadership, love, life, and lineage. Lani Hall, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Well, thank you, Jake. What a nice thing to say. Nice to be with you.
Well, it's great to talk to you. And I wanted to ask you, did you know Irene Krall?
No, I did not.
But you know who she was, though?
Yes, very much. In fact, I like some of her songs very much. I sang a couple of her songs, actually.
I know. Because this morning I'm taking my younger daughter to her 4-year-old checkup, and she's got to get like 4 shots in her arm. So I was just playing.
Oh.
I was playing like this Herb Alpert, Miss Piggy, 1974 thing, and then he introduces you, and you're singing Wheelers and Dealers, and I was like, dude, because I mean Irene. There's this one album that she did all this work with, like Alan Broadbent and Dave Frischberg, and I was just like, this is. I was thinking when I saw you singing it, I said, well, I know she must be a fan, but I wasn't sure if you had ever crossed paths with her.
Well, we were working with Dave, actually.
With Frischberg.
And Dave played it for me, Frischberg, yes. And he played it for me, and I just looked at him and said, let's record it, because I loved it.
Yeah, right. No, it is. What is it about, in your mind, how do you... When you hear a song like that, I hear a song like that too, but what makes a song in your mind? How does it swing for you? What are the intangibles in a song that have to swing?
A melody and lyric. Because you could make a song swing that doesn't swing when you listen to it. But if the melody and the lyric is there and you have a feel for it, then you know how you want to do it for you in your style. And so that's what I do. And also, I mean, Dave swings.
Yeah.
So when he played it for me on piano, just piano, it was swinging.
Well, what's interesting is that particular clip on YouTube was from 1974, and Irene didn't put it out on an album of hers till like 77 when she was dying of cancer. Which is just fascinating. I mean, and the whole thing is just, I mean, I've just been on this whole trip, and, I've been interviewing so many cats from your generation, even before, which is why I brought up the lineage, the 4 L's. One of the L's is lineage. And I wanted to ask you, one of the things I've been talking to a lot of the cats about is, the beat poets and the beat writers that inspired them, to play music. And I know that you came out of the folk scene in Chicago, and I wanted you to talk to the audience about some of the local beatniks that you got off on, and then overarching, were Ferlinghetti, were Ginsberg, or were there female beats that motivated you to be an individualist?
Well, that's a hard question for me to answer because I was not really steeped in the Chicago culture at the time. I was singing things that just moved me on the radio or that I had albums of, and when I was performing alone before I was with Sergio, so I was on... It's called Old Town in Chicago. It's kind of like the Village in New York.
Absolutely.
And so I was hanging around Old Town a lot, and I was playing at 2 places in Old Town. So I was passing by the folk wannabes in Chicago at the time. But you're right. I mean, Ferlinghetti and Ginsberg, I was definitely reading them and Kerouac, and my favorite poet is E. E. Cummings. He wasn't a beat poet, but he had his own way of expressing himself completely. So I was, and Dylan was just came out at
Sure.
the time.
Mm-hmm.
Folk rock was very big. So I was kind of moving into that folk rock category, but still, my real love of music was for jazz. I really that's what I listened to all the time. I mean, that was it. And when when the folk craze came by, I jumped on the train just like everybody else. But I wasn't really a protest singer.
No, you know what it is? I am, to me, this is like, Chicago is, maybe you weren't, going to the after hours jam sessions, the dawn sessions from 2 to 6, but I do.
No, I was not.
Right, but I mean, jazz at that time, you had bebop, clearly jazz and blues were locked at the hips, and
Right.
I want you to talk about, some of the people that you got to see early on, before you really were, when you were still developing your individual voice and you were trying to get comfortable on the bandstand. Who were some of the cats that you saw perform that inspired you, and why?
Well, I mean, even before I got on a bandstand, a friend of mine was a bar waitress in Chicago at this place called Mother Blues, and it was a nightclub. And so I would get in for free, because I certainly couldn't afford to go to a nightclub every night. But because she worked there, I was there for free. And so I got to see, I was so fortunate. I got to see Carmen McRae and Dizzy Gillespie and the great Oscar Brown Jr. I think Oscar Brown Jr. had a really a very big impact on me, on how to present a song and to embody a lyric. He really did that. He was, more of an. He also was an actor. He was a writer, and he wrote all of his songs. And he wrote these story lyrics that were so moving, and the way he performed them moved me so deeply that I really studied him,
Mm-hmm.
and he played there a lot. He was often there.
Yep.
So
Mm-hmm.
I got a chance to see him. I saw Lambert Hendrickson Ross there, which was just so wonderful. And so all these great jazz artists, I would stand on the balcony of Mother Blues and look down at the stage and watch and listen. And I really pulsed to the chord changes and the time of jazz. That was really what I loved to listen to. And then I, as I said, I got into the whole folk rock thing, but it was a phase for me. It didn't grab me.
Could you talk? I love Oscar Brown Jr. I've talked to cats that he'd have like a trio with him. Like maybe a conga player or guys back. But I mean, can you talk about one of these riffs that he would go on that you remember that really either you walked out sort of dazed or you tried to just not so much the content of what he was saying, but his stage presence? Do you remember one particular time?
Oh my God, he was so powerful. He was a very powerful presence, and he had a tremendous amount of this kind of contained energy on stage, and he became. And I've always been attracted to artists that really, that kind of act the song, and so that you could really experience the lyric come to life, as opposed to just standing on a stage, closing your eyes and singing,
Exactly.
and then expecting the audience to hopefully be listening hard enough to understand what this song is about. So Oscar and Judy Garland, Barbara Streisand, all the jazzers would do that. I mean, Carmen McRae, Nina Simone, they would sing a song, and you would understand the song, as well as you could, as well as it penetrated you. And Oscar would do these things that, I mean, he sang one song that I would almost cry every time he did this song. He became a rag man in an alley, crying rags and old iron. And he became, he would bend his body forward and kind of shuffle his feet and lift his head and put his hand by his mouth and yell rags and old iron, and it was so moving. It was like, watching a film, and it was such a story, and I just loved that. I loved the drama of it. I loved the emotion behind it. And certainly his performance was just so wonderful.
This is just a question that came to my head, but do you feel it was authentic? I mean, I guess what I'm saying today is you have pop music. When you were really coming up, I mean, you'd still hear some sophisticated pop music on the radio. Were there messages extremely authentic to someone even like yourself who maybe didn't sleep in an alley per se with rags, but
there was a rag man that came down our alley.
Right. No,
that wasn't a foreign image to me.
Sure. No. What I'm getting at is it resonated with you because they were speaking about their lives. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And how do you?
Yeah. And yes, and it was a story. It had a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess as far as pop music goes, once I started, I guess it was in the 70s, the early 70s, when Joni Mitchell started coming out, and Laura Nyro. I mean, those artists were very powerful for me too. I mean, Laura actually had a lot of jazz sensibility, and of course, so did Joni in her own way. But because she did an album with
for Mingus, right?
Mingus,
yeah. Right. No, I mean, even her. But I mean, that was the most intoxicating thing. I mean, for me, like the period of time in music that I cover is before I was born, which was basically 65 through 75. And, you went from acoustic to electric instrumentation. You eventually, the trap sets came out. But ultimately, like, the blending of music, I mean, you listen to Joni's Court and Spark album, all the cats on that album were jazzers, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They were all guys that, Max Bennett, Wilton Felder, Tom Scott, those guys could play not just improvise off a theme. I mean, those guys were straight ahead, like could read charts and everything. So it was like, I mean, there was a jazz element within the pop rock music.
But I felt Joni more than the environment that she created in her music. I really felt her lyric. Her lyrics were
absolutely
so profound to my ear and to my my mind. I mean, she really could capture a feeling and verbalize it and put it into words, and it was powerful. She really, I mean, Court and Spark and Blue and just Hissing Summer Lawns. I mean, those albums are phenomenal. I mean, she should be, in the next 100 years, she should be in the school books. I mean, she was profound.
Well, and then her way of I mean, I just interviewed David Crosby about a month ago, and he was talking about when they were together. I mean, she was the first one that really taught him about open tuning on the guitar. I mean,
well, I mean, not even to think about that.
Right.
I mean, her the way she would. But so do a lot of Brazilians. A lot of Brazilian artists do that too.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, they really retune their guitar, and it's just something else. It's just it just it changes it shifts everything. It's beautiful, and I love that.
You know, speaking of that, because I just found this Oscar Brown sound sort of a Broadway musical that he did called Joy, and Saivuka was on it. Did you know Saivuka?
Oh God! Well, Saivuka was played at Mother Blues.
Get at. Please tell me. I mean, because that man. I mean, these are the cats that just to me were so. For whatever reason, they were. We had a record-based, commerce-based record industry. We had a lot of stuff. But I mean, these guys were being. I mean, the only reason I even know about these guys is because they actually were on records. They were leaders on records. Their stories were being told. They were immigrants to this country. They were making their living. They weren't being demonized or it's, to me, it's like, I mean, fundamentally my show is about philosophy, wisdom, and love, but it also is looking back and saying, would this cat be, I mean, would he even be part of any kind of music business today? I mean, really, I wonder about that a lot. I mean, I feel like we've become a lot more narrow-minded, and I just was hoping you could. Well, I wish you could talk a little bit about Saivuka, because when you said open tuning, that cat was, I mean, he could play like 9 different instruments. He was with Harry Belafonte for a while. He's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I only saw him one time at Mother Blues, and he really made an impression. But there are some Brazilian artists. I mean, Hermeto Pasquale. I don't know if you know of him.
I'm obsessed with her.
Hermeto is just, insane. I mean, he is he is something else. He is so creative on his feet. He is so spontaneous and so musical and rhythmic, and it just he's wonderful. I mean, I loved Quarteto Novo. I don't know if you know that band that he was with in the 70s. Called Quarteto Novo.
Well, I mean, the only cat so far, Brazil, although I think I've done 2. I've done Deodato, and then I also had a beautiful opportunity to have this really long trip conversation with Airto. Morea.
Well, I was just going to mention Airto. Airto was in Quarteto Novo.
Exactly. No, and those albums on Buddha or whatever with Hermeto and him, those are some of the I mean, it's just funny. He's Hermeto.
I love them.
Yeah, Hermeto's like there's like a picture of him like buried up to his head in sand with all these percussive instruments. But yeah, no, I mean, can you talk about I mean, to me, it's putting their technical chops aside, the spiritual quality that they introduced, if they did, even Sergio, of the music. I mean, there's only 2 letters that separate music and magic, and I want to believe that those immigrants came in and really added, really brought a spiritual quality to the music. But you tell me.
You're talking about Brazilian music?
Yeah, well, I mean, how did those yeah, exactly. I mean, they came in with such a zest. I mean, it wasn't just about...
Well, for me, I mean, when Stan Getz brought Brazilian music really into this country in I think it was 62 or 64 with the girl from Ipanema.
Absolutely.
and was Jobim there, and so he brought this sound. And there was the first time I ever heard anybody singing in Portuguese. So I was, I loved that album. And then all of a sudden, it disappeared. And when I went over to when I was playing in Old Town, and between shows, I heard about this guy Sergio Mendes, and he had a group Brazil 65 that was playing at another place, and I went over to see him, and there it was. There was that music again. And I got so excited just to hear that rhythm again. So I really pulsed to that rhythm for some reason. I mean, I'm from Chicago. I had no upbringing with listening to anything that wasn't American music, and all of a sudden I'm madly in love with Brazilian music. And I realized that, and I wondered, what is it, especially after I joined Brazil 66, what is it? Sergio used to give me songs by Brazilian composers and said, whichever one you like the best, could you write a lyric to it? So I really got involved with the music, and what I discovered was that the influence, the American jazz influence on Brazilian music,
Right.
the African influence, and the missionaries that came to Brazil would sing these Gregorian chants and teach these chants to the people that lived in Brazil. And so the combination of this kind of earth against sky, this holy, primitive thing that goes on at the simultaneously is I mean, you talked about spiritual. I mean, I just it is that for me. It is spiritual music. It lifts you. It touches you. And I have not heard anything like that. I mean, I'm not speaking about the samba. I'm not speaking about samba music right now.
Right.
I'm speaking about other, the kind of Brazilian music that Airto plays, that Hermeto, that Edu Lobo, Dori Caymmi, and Jobim. I mean, Jobim's music was very sophisticated. But there's this, other element of primitive that goes on, and the rhythms that support that. There's nothing like that. I've never heard anything like that, and I, fell madly in love with that music.
You're not the only one. I mean, it was like when I interviewed John Densmore from The Doors, the drummer. He when he heard "Girl from Ipanema," he lost his mind like you did, and he was going to see. Afro jazzers like Art Blakey and Elvin Jones just pound, and I wanted to go a little bit deeper with you.
But just let me just one thing. The thing is with Brazilian music, and for some reason, like I said, I'm from Chicago. I had no idea, but for some reason, I pulsed to that. The Brazilian music is on 1 and 3. It's not on 2 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
So if you sing it and you're feeling it in 2 and 4, it just doesn't seem to connect, So you gotta. I think that as a musician, if you're going to approach Brazilian music and keep it authentic, that's to me that's what the consciousness, where the consciousness should be, is on 1 and 3.
I don't think I realized that Brazilian music. I always just assumed it was reggae. That was always the reggae beat was on 1 and 3. But you really even the Girl from Ipanema was on 1 and 3.
Oh, Brazilian music is on 1 and 3. You'll hear it now. Where you start tapping your foot. You can start. Even if you count. If you count on 2 and 4 and you tap your foot on 2 and 4, you can feel it. It doesn't seem to connect right.
Do you think that? I mean, like you said, they weren't playing. Like Sergio, when you heard his band, I mean, they weren't playing straight samba music. I mean,
oh no!
Can you talk about that word fusion? People attribute that word. People think more about whether it's Weather Report or Mahavishnu Orchestra or Return to Forever, but actually, fusion was that music. And I was the Sergio.
I wouldn't call it fusion.
What were the rhythms? Yeah, what were the rhythms that you were hearing with it, that he was blending together?
The rhythms were Brazilian. I mean, he was playing Brazilian music. As a jazz musician, he was playing Brazilian music. He was improvising. He was, it was spontaneous. But the rhythms and the percussion and the guitars. I mean, everybody was playing Brazilian music. I mean, it wasn't a fusion. I mean, I guess you could call Brazilian music a fusion music in general because it's influenced by so many other. There's so many different influences in it, but this was Brazilian music that I was hearing, and we, he wasn't really playing any American music at the time. With Brazil '66, when I joined them, then all of a sudden, and that was Sergio. That was a risk that was the risk that Sergio took when he hired me, because he had only been working with Brazilians, and now and the band broke up and they were all going back to Brazil, and now he decided, okay, I'm going to try to use a couple of Americans. So I'm going to get a lead singer that's an American, and I'm going to use an American bass player, Bob Matthews, and I'm going to keep my Brazilian rhythm section the way it is, with Brazilians, but I'm going to see what happens there. And by doing that, I brought him, songs that I liked. And all of a sudden, he started doing some American songs. And,
wow.
It just started to evolve.
Well, can you, was there a point early on where you were, where you felt a lot of adversity insofar as being in such a unique setting? You were fighting a little bit, and one of the L's on my show is life, overcoming adversity, and I just feel like he took a chance with you. It was new. It had to take a while to work it out, and I'm trying to figure out. I would like you to talk a little bit about if, in fact, you faced a little, if you were fighting it a little bit, and how you overcame it.
Well, I don't really think that happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Sergio was so respectful and so open
right.
to all kinds of music and all kinds of influences that no one ever gave me any kind of feeling that I had to fight for something.
I'm talking about your own internal, I've talked to cats that, overcoming adversity for Steve Gadd, the drummer, was basically being so riddled with addiction that he almost lost everything and had to walk away and clean up. For Ron Tutt, the great drummer, Elvis's great drummer, when reggae music came about, he really was flummoxed by what we were just talking about, the rhythm on the 1-3 instead of the 2-4, and he had to go back. So I guess stretching out from this, was there a time in your career where whether it was stage presence, a certain genre of music, finding your own individual voice, was there a time where you were fighting yourself, not fighting the other band members, but really having to fight through the adversity and how you overcame it?
Well...
And I guess it doesn't have to relate to music either, but, I mean, that part of my show is this is really everybody is on their own trip, but everybody has to, part of it is also hearing from people who are established figures in the music world who can talk truthfully about overcoming adversity. So, associate it any way you want to.
I think that as far as music goes, in the music world, when I joined the band and started traveling around the world, I think the first thing that I noticed was how comfortable I felt with musicians, and how comfortable I felt in clubs or in concert halls. I had never felt that, and I always felt, before I had that experience, I always felt out of place. That I was trying to find a place for myself to feel comfortable.
Interesting.
And I couldn't find it. And I didn't know where to look. But it happened for me, and there it was. And so being around musicians and being around people that speak the same language as you, not necessarily and literally, but you can communicate with them easily, and they understand what you're trying to say. Finding that spot in life, whether you're an artist or not,
right,
is like finding your home.
This is so fascinating. So could you talk about your feelings before you really found your home? Was it?
Before I found my home, I was lost. I was pretty lost. I just, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I was an introvert, and I am an introvert.
Mm-hmm.
So being around people was very draining for me, and but not around musicians. I gotta say.
Oh, there's some of the they're
not
really
around musicians.
No, there's some of the most some of the most positive people. I have collectively I've interviewed 500 cats. I don't think I've met probably more than 5 of them. But man, they have given me more love and more spiritual energy in my life. I mean, so I know what you're talking about, and I can't even imagine once you start collaborating on a musical level as well.
Yeah. But before I became, a working artist, I didn't know that I was an artist. I had no idea. I was just singing in my room. I had no thoughts of anybody ever listening to me, or I would never even think of singing in front of somebody and thinking, "What do you think, of me?" I would never. I had no confidence in that way, and so I never really thought this would go anywhere. I just did it because I loved doing it. And so I would sing in my room all the time, and I didn't realize it, but at the time I was learning hundreds and hundreds of songs. And so I was ready. When I was in the right place at the right time, I was ready. And I didn't know I would be ready, but I was ready. And it happened for me, and it changed the course of my life. It changed it dramatically. And I have no idea what my life would have been like had I not, had the cards fallen the way they did for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when you're doing what you love to do, and you play with it, and you find you don't. I think that as a singer, one of the things that you don't want to do, and you have to do it in the beginning. I was singing with June Christie and Anita O'Day and Nina Simone and all these Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross, all these great, and I was singing along with Bill Evans solos, and I was into it, but they've done it, and they've done it better than you can do it because it's them. And I think finding your own voice in things is really the most gratifying and the most truthful thing you can do for yourself.
And that's beautifully said. When you came out to the West Coast, could you talk a little bit about some of the diversity of the bills that you were on? I mean, I know Bill Graham up in Northern California, he would, on the Fillmore West, it was not out of the question to have Charles Lloyd, the Grateful Dead, and Tiny Tim on the same bill, okay? And I know that with Sergio, I mean, here he is bringing his roots music and then playing with all these beautiful flavors and hearing all these other sounds of post-bop jazz or, soul and R&B. I just wanted you to talk to the audience about one of the stranger bills that you showed up on, and who, because that to me, people's ears were wide open. They were wide open because of that stuff. Where with digital music today, they've just gotten crunched down and closed. So I wanted you to talk about that.
Well, the only thing I remember, is when I remember meeting Elton John. And I met him, and I said, "Oh, my God, I'm so happy to meet you. I'm such a fan of yours." And he said, "We've met before." And I said, "Oh, no, we haven't met before. I would remember if we met before." He said, "No, I opened your show." I said, "What?" And it turned out that when we were in Paris with Brazil 66, Elton John opened our show. I remember standing on the side of the stage watching him. But I didn't know that was him.
Wow.
He was just starting out, and and so that was my second time that I met him, and I thought that was really a strange, strange that I didn't remember him.
Well, but he was not. I mean, yeah, but then maybe you were just too absorbed with trying to focus on your own performance.
No, I think I was absorbed with him and everything. I just didn't know what his name was. I didn't know I didn't know the name, and I didn't know the music because he was just starting out. But I thought that was funny. But I don't really remember playing with a lot of different. In Brazil, we played with some different artists, but in the States, we'd have usually have comedians open the show. And a lot of times it didn't have anything to do with us. I mean, we didn't book these people. The venue booked them. So we would just wait until it was our turn to go on, and we would go on. So that I don't really remember playing with people.
Did you? Because I know you saw you just referenced June Christie, Nina Simone. Those are cats you saw play. But did you wind up ever crossing paths with like Ella Fitzgerald or once you got to the West
Yes,
Coast?
I did. We were playing in the Hollywood Bowl, and Ella was playing there too as well. And I went backstage and I was introduced to her, and she said, "Oh, you're the girl that sings in that group?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Oh, you've got such a beautiful voice," and it was just so thrilling. But the biggest, no, I never met June Christie. I never met Nina Simone or Anita O'Day, but I did. I don't know if you're familiar with Ruth Olay.
Is she contemporary or more old school?
Old school.
Yeah, I don't know that. No, I don't know that name.
Yeah, she was somebody that I listened to also and learned all her songs. And when I moved to LA, I wanted to transfer all my albums to CDs, and I just couldn't find her records. And so one day at UCLA, we were taking pictures of all musicians in LA. And all the singers were supposed to go to a certain spot. And I went to the spot, and I saw this woman, and I said, "Is this where the singers are supposed to be?" And she said, yes. Are you a singer? And I said, yes. And she said, "What's your name?" And I said, "Lani Hall." And she said, oh, I know who you are. You've got a lovely voice. It's so nice to meet you. And I said, "Oh, thank you." And I shook her hand, and I said, "What's your name?" And she said, "Ruth Olay."
Wow.
And I held her hand, and I said, "You're Ruth Olay?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "You're Ruth Olay?" I followed her around like a puppy all day. I could not stop. She was so lovely, and she's so talented, and I finally got to meet her. So I was really excited about that.
Well, no, I mean, I did want to ask you, about what you consider to be the most nuanced leadership qualities that you feel are important as a leader, whether on the bandstand or in any capacity. And if you could cite an example of somebody that you consider to be a leader.
Well, that's easy. Herb,
Sure.
my husband.
Oh yeah.
He's a leader.
Great cat.
And
yeah.
he leads with his heart. And I think that's a challenge, because when you're a leader, you feel that sense of power, and you can abuse it, and turn on your persona or your representative, and it's not really you, but it takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable and to be accepting, and whether you like it, whether you like what you're accepting or don't like what you're accepting, to be able to accept that and accept a person for being that way and thinking that way, even though you don't. It takes a lot of courage and to be vulnerable and to say your truth so that somebody else could hear it.
Can you give an example? Could you give an example of something like that that you witnessed with Herb? Or yourself?
He lives it. He embodies it.
Right,
so
but you
always.
Yeah, but the amount of especially when you first started to collaborate with him, something that inspired you from when you just spelled out one of those classic things where.
Well, that's easy.
Yeah.
His kindness is is boundless. His kindness is boundless. His kindness is contagious. You see his respect for everybody. The only thing that pisses him off is when he sees someone that doesn't respect something, and treats somebody poorly. That really gets him, because he just in his core, he knows that that's not right, and that's not the way to treat anybody. And so he is. When I first met him, I thought this was an act. I didn't trust it at all.
Really? Wow. This is classic. Okay, go ahead.
I did. His true colors are going to come out one day.
Right.
Well, I'm still waiting, and I've been married to him for 42 years.
He's not going to change. That's really.
No, that's him. He is that, and it's so beautiful. Sometimes if I'm angry about something, which isn't that often, but if I am,
sure.
I'll say something to him, and I'll say, well, I didn't like it when you did this, or whatever I'm criticizing, and he'll look at me and he'll say, I'm really glad you told me this. I find, I'm glad you said that, and that's not the response that you think. You think you go head to head with somebody, you think they're going to go head to head with you. And, especially if you're, volatile, and I'm much more volatile than he is. So he has this way of not getting caught up in anybody else's nervous energy, and staying in his own space, and trying to understand.
So hard to do.
And he does it time and time again.
Yeah, and it's probably a natural thing. So to him, it's not. He's kind of he doesn't understand why people marvel at that. But it's true. It's a really important leadership quality. Do you how do you feel about the music industry? I understand that you and her have been collaborating for a long time, but I dig that Sundown Lady. I love those solo albums. Yeah. But I just wanted you to talk a little bit about how, as a woman, 2016 for me already, I've dedicated to the Year of the Woman. I interviewed Rita Coolidge last week. Got a chance to interview you now, and I wanted you to talk about, as a woman, dealing with the music industry at that time. It's not an industry anymore. So I just wanted you to talk about your experience as a woman, and if it was daunting, or what your experience was like.
Well, I know that other women felt mistreated and didn't feel appreciated, and in the business. There weren't a lot of women engineers or women that worked in recording studios. There weren't women road managers, and men had all these jobs, and women were not happy about that. But that was the temperature of the time. But I never felt that. I never felt anyone was trying to manipulate me in any way. For some reason, I saw it happening to other women, but for some reason, it wasn't happening to me. And I'm not exactly sure why. I tend to say it because I'm a Chicago girl.
Right, you didn't take any crap, are you saying that you had to advocate for yourself, though?
I did, but it wasn't. I wasn't fighting anybody tooth and nail.
Sure.
I wasn't. If somebody would say something to me that I don't really remember anyone saying anything to me that was demeaning, or that was made to that was said to make me feel less than. I really don't remember that. I had and have the kind of career that I would dream of. I'm very happy with the way my career has evolved, and I didn't have to fight that hard. I don't know why. I think it's a lot of it too. I think is because I adapted to Brazilian music, and I think a lot of people were impressed with that.
Right, exactly. Well, I mean, would you say you were the first? I mean, this might be a broad question, but were you the first American woman to fuse with a roots Brazilian band?
I think so. I don't know of another Brazilian band with an American woman.
Can you talk? I mean, this is so classic. Can you, from your own perspective, I think you just nailed it. I mean, I think that being a trendsetter like that vaulted you into a level of, whether it was perception or not, there was a respect thing there. But looking back on that, how do you feel about being a trendsetter in that musical mode?
Well, I don't feel like a trendsetter. It wasn't me. It was Sergio. I mean, it was his group, and I followed what he wanted to do. I mean, yes, I put my stamp on it, because I was the lead singer. But I mean, I learned everything from the band. I mean, I didn't just walk in there like I didn't know. I mean, I was a student. I was studying that. I really wanted to sound authentically Brazilian. Even the first time I saw him at that club and I stood in the balcony and did, that's that music, I thought to myself, if I ever sang that kind of music, I'd want to sound just like that. I'd want to sound Brazilian. And that's how I approached it, and really, really phonetically learned how to sing in Portuguese, and I loved it. And I couldn't have done it if I didn't love it.
Absolutely. You guys, how improvisational do your shows get today? I mean, you added a third night. I was talking to Caroline. You add a third night. You guys are immensely popular. The venues are selling out. It's great. Do you find yourself, writing out a garden variety set list and giving a sort of greatest hits combination of, Albert and Lani, or do you find yourself improvising off a theme and having the dexterity or having the band to be able to just go with it?
Well, the band is improvisational, and we have a set list, and we have 3 medleys. One of them is a TJB medley, Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass medley. One of them is a Brazil 66 medley, and the other one is a Jobim medley. And those are pretty set. Those 3 medleys are pretty set. There's not a lot of improvisation in there, but the rest of the songs, they take solos, and it is improvisational music. Not for me. I am not an improvisational singer.
Right on. I mean, you're not going to be like scat singing like.
Oh no, I don't know how to scat sing.
Right, I don't either. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
So I'm doing my thing. I mean, I'm not singing exactly the same notes every night, but I'm grooving to whatever happens. If everybody slows up to almost a stop, I'm with you. But everybody is doing improvisational music, and the musicianship is so high and so excellent that it's a very exciting show for me. I mean, I'm on stage and I'm listening to this thing every night, and I got to say, I get really excited. It's really fantastic music. So,
have you noticed? I'm curious. I mean, not that maybe I don't know how accessible you are to the audiences, but you look at certain psychedelic rock bands, or as they progressed over time, their audiences actually got younger and younger. And I wonder about the age. I mean, are you still getting cats that are like, oh my God, I saw you guys when you first started collaborating in 1972? Or
yes, we get them,
and you get also,
and then we get their kids.
Sure, the lineage, right?
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
How does that?
Like a lot of people say, my mom turned me on to your music, and and there it is. I mean, it's. I would say it's about 50-50.
Right.
It's about 50-50, maybe from 30s to 50s, and then maybe 50s to 70s.
Do you have any idea about immigrants that are coming to? I'm just talking about. I mean, you went to a samba. You went to non-Western music, and I just wonder about those hungry or younger cats who might really be curious about stretching their ears out. Do you see a lot of immigrants at all?
I think that there's a lot of Latinos,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of South Americans, and but basically, I think it's just a normal mixture of cultures that. I remember when I was doing a Brazilian album. This was like in the 80s maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And there I was at A&M, and I was recording an album, and I walked out of the studio after a take, and all of a sudden I look, and there's the cleaning ladies.
Sure.
The cleaning ladies. There's about 4 cleaning ladies with their brooms and their pails, and they're standing outside the thing, and they're looking at me doing, "We love this music," and that really hit me, because that music hadn't been played for a while, and it felt like we miss that music. We miss that feeling. It's so wonderful, and I understood that. And I think that the people that come to see the show feel that way about, of course, Brazilian music, but definitely about Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass music. I mean, it's joyful. It is an energy. And it's a specific kind of energy, and I think that's why people are so happy with our show. And I use that word because I'm on stage and I'm looking at the audience, and they look happy.
Yeah, well, that's really. I mean, I'll tell you, that's what Art Blakey used to say. Part of his job as a drummer was for the patrons, help them wash away the dust of everyday life. And so when you can get people's minds off their own problems and actually get them into an elevated state.
That's what we the whole band says that right before we go on. We hope that we can lift the people, and they could receive what we're giving, and that we can receive what they're giving, and for this time that we're together.
One final question for you, Lani, before I let you go. The other L on my show is love, and I wanted you to talk about your concept of love and how you bring love to this world.
Well, I think that art, in any way, being a singer or being in music or dance or writing or anything, acting, poetry, whatever, any kind of an art form, I think creativity is healing. And I think that, the artists of the world are the healers of the world. And I think that if you can just give without expectation and be yourself. Be yourself. I think that is, it's like Shakespeare says, this to thine own self be true. I mean, it's above all else, to thine own self be true. My father used to tell me that quote when I was growing up in Chicago, and I didn't understand it until later in life. And I think that in order to have a fulfilling life, you have to be true to yourself. You have to listen to your inner guide and listen to it and take it seriously.
I know I didn't really start to become myself until I started this radio program 5 years ago, and I'm 38 now.
Wow.
What would be your advice to younger cats? Because when I was 21, coming out with a broadcasting degree from Boston University, I didn't have my voice. I didn't know what to do. It was kind of like I had not found my home, and And what would be your advice for younger people on how to find themselves? I mean, in today's world, we have fewer choices, more restrictions, corporate consolidation of the media. There is not a lot of open-mindedness. There certainly is not a lot of, I don't know. What kind of advice would you give to younger cats to help them find themselves and be themselves? That is not an easy task.
Well, if I hadn't made it as a singer, if I hadn't, been in the right place at the right time,
Mm-hmm.
I would be singing. I would still be singing in my room. I mean, I would do something, to support myself and have a job and try to do the best I can do, but I wouldn't stop doing what was true to me and what my passion was. I wouldn't stop. And I think that, you can keep going and keep finding what fulfills you and keep going in that direction. I know the world's a tough place. I mean, it seems like it's tougher now. It seems like technology has actually isolated everybody even more.
I know. Well, I think it's maybe not tougher. It's just there's more callous. It's more calloused world now. Less.
It's just different.
Yeah, it is.
It's a different world,
mm-hmm.
and I think that it because it's a different world and because the rules aren't so blatant. You have to find your own way, and the only way to know if you're on the right track is from your gut.
Right.
And if you're just trying to compete or trying to better to do better than the other person or whatever, I don't know. I don't know how happy you're going to be in your life. I think if you keep doing the things that make you feel alive, then you're on the right track.
Right. Let's also bear in mind that when Lani was coming of age, the cost in the late '60s, the cost of living kept up with minimum wage. It was you could really, and to me though, it's about reinventing yourself, being extremely creative, and I think being true to your heart and
just being open.
Yeah, well, being open, but it's
I mean, when you say reinvent yourself, I mean, I don't know if you have to really be conscious of trying to reinvent yourself, because that's a tall task.
Well, but I mean, if you think about it, I mean, it's when the drum track came in, you had to reinvent yourself. When disco came in, you had to reinvent yourself. I mean, these were all things that changed in the music that you had.
Yeah, but I'll tell you something, Jake. When disco came in, I did this disco. I fooled around with some disco.
Sure.
And I remember one of the songs was starting to make noise on the radio. And the record company called me and said, "Oh boy, this is good. This is good. This song might be a hit." And I remember thinking, I don't want that song to be a hit. I don't want to do that kind of music.
Right.
I mean, I like disco, but I'm not a disco singer, and I don't want to build a career on doing music I don't like.
Absolutely. There you go. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, there's a lot of cats that still tour because the money is good, but they hate the guts of everybody they played with. To me, that is, when you, I think that what you said before is true. Even if you needed a day job to make some dough, you'd still be singing because you just truly. Yeah, exactly.
Because I have to.
Right. you got to get the stuff out of your system.
Yeah, I remember when we were doing some tours, and I was getting sick a lot. It was in the winter, and I don't know. Every time we would finish the gig, I would be coughing, and I was talking to this guy, and he said, "Well, why don't you just stop?" And I said, "Stop what?" And he said, "Stop singing." And I said, "Stop singing?" Are you kidding?
Yeah, what kind of that's anathema. I mean, that's.
Yeah, I mean, that thought would never even enter my mind.
They'd have to.
Yeah.
They'd have
you
to.
can't,
They'd
you
have
can't
to,
turn
yeah.
your back on what you love. You can't.
I dig.
Yeah.
Lani, I just wanted to ask you before we let you know. I'm still trying to grow in my career, and I was wondering if you knew the best way for me to get a hold of Hermeto and Sergio. If you have any people that know how to get a hold of them.
Gee. Hermeto, no. Sergio, yes.
Yes. Well,
You know what I can do? I can call you.
okay.
Let me call somebody,
Okay.
and then I can call you and give you whatever you need.
Can I give you my phone number? 'Cause
Yeah.
You called the studio here. I'll give.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
When you're ready.
Go ahead.
It's 520
520
275
275
2058.
2058. And what is this, your cell?
That's my cell. So it's
Okay,
Jake's cell.
your cell.
Yeah, just give me a call when you can. And I'll have this up. This streamed live. We got you and Herb coming into to Phoenix in third week of April, and I know another show was added, and I really hope I can get up there and meet you guys. I've done 2 really good interviews with both of you now.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Jake, if you are, come back after the show and let's meet.
I would love it, Lani, and bless you and continued success, and we'll talk soon.
The same to you.
Cheers.
Great.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
This is the Jake Feinberg Show. We'll see you all.